Hello, welcome to Free Will, Science, and Religion. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with George Ortega, Trick Slattery, wsdtime, Michael Laster, and Jamie Soden, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about this Daily Coast website and how we might use it to get the message of no free will out to a wider audience than ever before. George, I guess I'll let you continue.
Okay, I just wanted, like, for our audience, I just wanted to preface that, about 3 weeks ago, we start publishing articles on Daily Kos, and the comments, ordinarily, the stories on Kos will get 10, 15, sometimes 50, 100 comments. Some of our stories have gotten 2, 300 comments. It's something that free will has not been injected into politics yet, and we are actually doing that. We're pioneering that. And
Okay.
I don't think it's a coincidence that 2 weeks after we start, this project, we must have put about, close to a dozen stories up. The Atlantic magazine, premier, major magazine, comes out with a feature story. And the thing is, like, these magazines, they can, like, get somebody to write something in an afternoon, in a day, and have it up, a day or two later. It's not like there's not a great turnaround time. So I believe that our work was, kind of led to that. So now I just want to talk about how we can get more organized. Um, Before I continue, like, guys, what do you think of the projects? What are your questions, your comments? What are your feelings and thoughts about this particular project?
I guess I can go first. So at first I noticed like the negative, I guess, comments that we were getting. We were getting a lot of negative comments on Daily Coast. So a lot of people, I guess, weren't really, um, they weren't ready for us. It seemed so when we went on there and started posting, when you guys started posting stuff on there, people were, negative. There's a lot of negativity there. So I think we have to be careful about that because what can tend to happen is the well can be poisoned, right? So
What?
people can poison the well and make us look like we're, spamming or something like that. So we got to be careful of that type of thing. In my
Okay.
my opinion.
Yeah, Trick, I'm glad you brought that up because that's hugely important. When we started, I had the same kind of impression, but then, like, like, I did a podcast with Quaid and Chandler recently, and we explored actually these snarkers, these people who just go on to kind of, like, just, you know, to sometimes accuse us. First of all, the accusations of sock puppets and all have just lessened a lot.
Yeah.
And when they accuse us of working together, we could just, like, copy and paste the Coast guideline. Says, hey, we're not breaking any rules by doing this. We're friends. But the stronger point, Trick, is that what I discovered is that these guys are our best friends. In other words, like, when we put an article up,
Mhm.
these guys begin to comment, right? And they give us a perfect opportunity to comment back, to defend ourselves, and they'll keep at it, right? And what this does, Michael, this is good for you here, because, like, we want to
Hmm.
encourage you to start posting also. What this does is it quickly, very quickly, increases the comment count for the story. Now, if you guys know how Daily Coast is structured, on the right hand side there's a recent stories column, and that's where the recent stories appear. When the new story is going to appear at the very top, and I think there may be, who knows, 50 to 100 total stories. So it's only got this window of opportunity where it's going to be, like, noticed by people looking for stories. So again, these guys, they have discovered that they really don't pose a threat as long as we stay by the guidelines. Let them threaten, let them do what they want, but they really, the other part of this, guys, is, like, when we publish a story, especially during the first half hour, if we can get on there at the same time. Trick, no, no, Quaid, Chandler, Jamie, and I did this, I think last week, and the story ended up having over 300 comments because we got the ball rolling. So,
Mm.
like, once we get the ball rolling, then it'll just take off on its own. So again, this is like giving a positive spin to what initially seems like something that we should be upset about and disappointed. These guys are actually doing us a huge favor.
Yeah,
Was
and
it?
George, if I can interject here, I'm not really up to date with everything that's going on the Daily Coast, the Atlantic, what exactly accusations they're throwing, but I imagine, like you said, like the more we do it in like an inclusive way, where we make it clear that they're probably our best allies in this potentially.
No, oh no, guys,
Then
no, Michael, no, we don't want to say that to them. We want them to continue to believe that they are really, doing us a disfavor, because, like, to the extent that they understand that they're doing us a favor, they may actually stop. But it's good for us to understand this.
why don't we want them to agree with us?
These guys, all right, first of all, these guys who do the snarking, they are kind of like fundamentalist Christians. They're set against free will. That's why they react.
Which means they're going to spread the word.
Well, yes, by their
Yeah.
opposition, but we don't have really a chance of convincing them. But you got to understand, they're a small minority who posts a lot. Our audience isn't really them. Our audience are the people who aren't posting comments but are reading, and
I see.
they'll read their, like, nonsensical defenses of free will, followed by our refutations of their defenses.
Okay, so in this case, any attention is good attention,
Abs-
especially negative attention.
Absolutely, because you can think about it. Negative attention gives us the opportunity to expand on our points and clarify and reiterate.
Okay,
Yeah.
but then ultimately, where do we want it to go from there? Because we will want, some support by the progressive community. Like, not just, yes, we're on the same page, but I don't really think it makes that big a difference. But, really incorporating it into the progressive belief system.
Oh, well, does anybody want to address that? All right, let me address it. Basically, what I've been focused on is that basically it's Democrats versus Republicans, progressives versus conservatives. And our selling point, our talking point, is that the conservatives, the Republicans, use the free will myth to target people. They target people, they blame people for things, like, for example, blaming gays for being gays, blaming the poor for being poor, blaming the mentally ill for being mentally ill. That's how they target people using this free will
And they
myth.
make accusations about transgender people, hence that
Exactly.
newsfeed about the transgender toilet thing.
Right. So basically, we are attacking the foundation of Republican conservative, a major part of the foundation of their strategy for dividing the country, for pitting people against people. And so, like, Michael, to answer your question, we are getting the ball rolling on this. In other words, we're attracting attention. We're teaching these political people who, before this, they'd never thought about free will. They'd never thought of the implications. And once they understand the value of this strategy to their overall, goals of defeating Republicans, of getting, like, progressive legislation passed, then they will take it, in various ways. Now, also, like, once we have, let's say, 3 4 dozen articles up, we can, like, we can publish a book, and Mitch is actually in the process of creating the not-for-profit, so we'd publish it under the auspices of the not-for-profit. So, in other words, this work that we do here, publishing our pieces on Coast, we can, once again, like, the people on Coast, the journalists, like, for the Atlantic and all, they'll amplify the message, and then, like, in a month or 2 or 3, we can come out with a book, before the elections.
So this is all publicity at this point, at this stage.
Absolutely, because think about it. That's what we do anyhow. Like, those of us who've written books, who are working on second, third books and all, the more this gets out there, the more of an audience is, and our fundamental mission really is, to get it out there as much as possible, so that we can begin to change, more and more minds.
What I've noticed about Republicans is the far right tend to be against things like a basic income or minimum wage because they believe like it's against their economic principles, and they tend to put a price on human life. That's why they use the taxpayer argument when it comes to things like death penalty and whatnot.
Well, Jamie, and again, they use the free will myth for that. They say, well, the poor don't deserve help because they have their free will or choosing to not work or choosing to be lazy or choosing to be unproductive, whatever they blame people of, completely neglecting, the environmental factors that create, how people act and how they behave and what they can and can't do. They just they use this free will myth to further their really, greedy, selfish, hateful agenda.
Of course, yeah. I mean, we did an M&M show on this topic like several times.
All right, so listen, I don't know if you guys got an email from Quaid. He was asking what days and times you might be available. And Trick, I wanted to mention to you, you don't have time, I can understand that, but you have written so much already, on your blog with your books. Just copy and paste, not too long of a section, maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 paragraphs or something, and then just put a title on it, man. You don't, I actually
Yeah.
have been doing this with a book, yeah.
Well, I think I need more. It has to be more politically focused though for that.
Well, what happens, for example, you start out with a paragraph, right? And you could even make it into a series because that's what I did. I have 7 articles up on free will, and they all start the same. This is a series on how we progressives can use, can overcome the free will myth in order to take the foundation out of Republican ideology. So you type something like that and use that each time as your lead paragraph. Then you can go into why free will is an illusion. Then you can go into the harm in other ways. So
Yeah.
basically, you might have to write a paragraph, for each one, but very limited amount of work.
Yeah, that's not a
I,
bad idea.
I don't know if I mentioned this in other podcasts, right? But I've got disabilities myself, and I don't like share my face on the internet because, um, my Asperger's and stuff, makes me afraid of mixing in with people. You know what I mean? So
Well, Jamie, and yeah, you don't have to do that. You can talk about, for example, fat shaming, so things that don't have anything to do with your particular circumstances, and you certainly don't have to share any of your personal experience or situation. Absolutely.
yeah.
So what
Uh,
I wanted to say, so Quaid, sent out an email asking us which days and times are best for us. If you guys can get back to him if you haven't already, and then we can, again, once we have the schedule, 7 days a week, 7 of us, maybe on some days if there's more of us, 2 of us can post on one day. Then it's set. Then we just have to churn out 4 articles a month each, and we've got an article on free will appearing on Coast every day.
I'm
Yeah, I
glad that
mean,
the
if
progressives
we
are
can get
doing that.
everybody to do it, then yeah, that would just, I think,
Sorry.
take some of the burden away from just like 1 or 2 people doing it. So if Mitch did it and everybody else did it, but yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm glad
and
that there's progressives out there that are defending the vulnerable, though, like the elderly and the kids that come from poor homes and stuff.
say that again, Jamie.
I said I'm glad there's progressive liberals who are defending people who need state assistance, like the elderly, uh, disabled, and children who come from poor families and stuff.
Absolutely. All right,
Yeah.
so that's the basic. Now here, we gotta just go over things that we shouldn't do because Nick got banned. He's trying to get himself back on there
yeah. How did
for.
that happen? Because
All right, it's one of 2 things. First of all right, when you tag, you have to tag your stories, right? Don't tag it with more than 4 or 5 terms. I think Nick tagged it with 50 terms, including the names of some of the main Daily Coast
Jesus.
writers. Yeah, he was like, and the other thing he did is Nick posted a list of books on free will, and within it there were 3 by him and stuff. So he got accused of promoting his works, hawking his
oh
books and
right,
stuff.
yeah.
I have a question about that. Even if he was promoting his books, what is wrong with that?
Chandler, I agree with you completely, but unfortunately, the Coast site, I think they're just like, a bit fascist. I think their guidelines, I think, are too restrictive, but we got to work within them. I hear you.
Yeah, I had that feeling like they're just kind of being weird, you know. It's like,
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But
if you promote your book, you can also, promote your website, and then everybody's gonna, try and do that.
Well, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, but your book comes completely under freedom of speech, though, doesn't it, George? You know what I mean? There's nothing
Yeah.
bad in.
No, but Jamie, you got to understand. Yeah, this set. This is another point. This website is expressly about electing Democrats and progressives. Okay, in other words, like if you start going on there and advocating for Republican, values and stuff, that they may ban you for that because that's against their guidelines. That's against their purpose. So, you have, for example, you have Fox News that won't allow, progressive on there, championing progressive causes in the same way Coast won't allow Republicans to do that, in this. So again, it's important to keep in mind you got to be clearly progressive. You can't have them thinking, huh, is this guy like actually really a conservative or whatever.
yeah,
But I
I don't
thought the
even know what that means enough to act as if I'm progressive.
Well, then, Chandler, in your case, that stick to the free will thing. Don't veer off into anything else.
Exactly. That's why I've tried to keep it away from politics.
Okay, but I mean, like, all right, Trick, explain for Chandler how he could like you know combine the free will thing with the politics. It's like this, it's important to do this.
well, Chandler, you actually are doing it. So when you're promoting the whole free will thing, there it ties into politics. So you can't just say, oh well, I can just ignore politics, because politics is part of the whole free will thing. When
Yeah,
people
besides, it's going to be brought up anyway.
Yeah, well, let's just look at capitalism, for example. There's this stream, like this type of capitalism where these extreme levels happen where you have this really high inequalities, where you have 2% of the population that has most of the wealth. 50%, over 50% of all wealth is owned by 2% of the world's population. So and this is based on this notion of, well, these people deserve it because they've worked towards it, or whatever reasons. Even they've uh, inherited it. They still think, oh well, they deserve it because their parents worked for it or whatever. So it's this idea of deserve that kind of is a foundation for these politics. Uh, so you can't really separate the two. So when you
Charles
say that you want to focus
Dickens.
only on free will, you're really you're kind of focusing on these parts of politics as well that you don't even
Well,
realize.
perhaps, Trick, what it's about is I don't understand what defines something as being political or non-political. Sort of like that, like where's that line do you draw? Like on this side of the line, this is not political. On this side, it's political.
The main distinction is you have laws, right? So when we have laws in place that say that allow for these extreme inequalities, for example, then the understanding, if everyone understood that there was no free will, they would vote for laws against those things, or the death penalty, take for example. If there's a death penalty, once we understand that there's no free will, then that people might say, well, do people really deserve the death penalty, right? So that ties into those laws, and when it comes to laws, well, how we get laws is based on politics. It's who's voted in, it's who's you know who is there to basically create the laws, to to put laws in place and to enforce laws. So that all ties into politics.
So basically, when you're either advocating for a law or you're against a certain law, that's when you're getting into the realm of politics, sort of.
You need to get into politics for that. You can't, because you'll never affect law unless you address politics, unless you go into politics. You unless you vote for somebody that aligns with the laws that you want, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's true. I guess I just never felt like that was a battle that could be won, and that that was something that would happen after people's morality and logic has changed. You know,
Well,
like
Chandler, actually, that's we're actually part of that process. In other words, like so much of our politics is based on this free will myth. You know, blaming people, blaming the poor for being poor, and then not instituting laws to help them. So what we're trying to do is change the politics from its foundation, from the premises that inform people's votes and who they vote for and get elected.
It's
yeah,
like
I get what you're saying
when
there. That just by understanding that people don't have a free will, that will change people's ideas about what laws should exist or not based on who deserves what. Because so much of that is built on the free will belief.
well, we
I,
still
I,
need law and order, but what we also need to do is remove the conditions that lead people to, criminality and all that stuff. We could do that without blaming them. I mean, not blaming someone is not the same as condoning their behavior. People need to understand that.
Excellent point, Jamie. Like for example, with a lot of our criminals,
Yeah.
if the police and the judges and the public and the newspapers are just railing at these people, saying you guys are evil, you deserve to rot in hell, because literally the New York, the Daily News has that as a headline sometimes in these stories.
Mm.
Um, it's if you're telling a person that, it's hard for that person to see themselves as anything but that. So in other words, like if we started saying, listen, you know, we understand it's not your fault. We have to like separate you, you know, to protect society and perhaps to help you reform, then we can help those people, treat them more compassionately and reduce crime at the same time.
Because sometimes people commit violent crimes when they're under the influence of toxins like alcohol and other hallucinogens, and sometimes even a brain tumor can lead to violent offending. I think in them sort of cases we need to be a bit more. I mean, obviously we need to lock them up for some time, but after we've treated them for whatever they were suffering from, wouldn't you say we should rehabilitate them and then reintegrate them into society later on?
Obviously, of course, of course. All right, guys, I want to segue back to the logistics for a moment. Um, Trick, Michael especially. Um, Here's another point. Let's say you start getting comments on a story, either somebody else wrote or something you just published, right? You're online, and you get, let's say, somebody, you know, making a joke, okay? Which you don't want to spend too much time, you know, writing your comments, and you want to try not to ignore any comments either. In other words, if somebody writes a joke about your post, your story, you know, just an LOL as a comment. You know, just the idea is like respond to every comment you get on your post, even if it's just a few words, even if you're just asking a question. Because again, the strategy when a story gets up there, especially in the very beginning, is you want to you want to like boost that comment count as quickly as possible to attract as much early interest in the piece as possible.
right. So that's more just to get more comments, basically. But
Yeah, and go ahead.
so yeah, see, I'm concerned like because I kind of want to focus down and like really explain to them, but I don't have the time for that many comments. So it's
Hey,
kind of a catch-22 in my like.
no, you're right, Mitch, and you don't have the time, and that's understandable. You're busy, you're doing stuff. So, like, you put the article out there, and you do the explaining in each article, right? I mean, it'd be ideal, it'd be great if you'd have the time to like take them through it. But let me tell you something. My experience running all these like meetups and stuff is like we're gonna like sway very few minds with that. I think you guys have all had examples of trying to like go through the logic with people of why they don't have a free will. This is a very entrenched view that a lot of times, you know, we might be presenting completely logical, you know, sensible arguments and points, but because of people's emotions and ideology, they're not going to appreciate them. You know, it's not like we can, you know, we should actually even expect that, you know, very immediately.
Right,
So,
right.
but again, so like the place to do that, to go into in-depth explanations like that, is in the piece, because like, you know, the other part is that most people are reading the story, and not bothering at all to go to the comments. I have a feeling the vast majority of readers do that. So we're basically we're using the comments just to up the readership.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense.
Okay, so let's see. All right. Do you guys have any questions? Because I think we've covered this. So again, like the next step, if we can just get this schedule, each of us like writing a post once a week and all, then this project is pretty much running on its own. We can just like start focusing on the not-for-profit and other stuff. So does anybody have any other like questions, comments about this, or?
Did you say writing a post, or do you mean writing an entire article?
Yeah, writing an article, and here you go, Michael. These articles do not have to be long. Sometimes, actually, if they're long, it works against us because people lose patience, midway through and I'm guilty of this. They lose patience midway through the article, and then they don't bother to post. If you're going to write a story and you make it relatively short, also try to be controversial. Okay, try to say things in a way that might, stir some kind of like emotional reaction to people, whatever. Because that's what these commenters, these guys that are our friends that are actually going to be like, saying, of course we have a free will, you guys are out of your mind and stuff. We want to like get them to do that.
Right.
But Michael, yeah, again, 4 or 5 paragraphs, simple that's all you need.
Okay, and are articles different than
Not a
posts?
whole
I'm not
essay.
sure.
No,
Right.
I'm just using the they're sometimes they're called stories, sometimes they're called diaries, articles, the same thing. Yeah, just the piece that you publish.
Okay.
And one thing that you guys should know, let's say you publish a piece, and let's say you find some typos, some grammatical mistakes, whatever. Even in the title, you can edit it and re-edit it as often as you want. You can change the title, do it, as much editing as you want to.
Yeah, I did notice that.
One way you can tell people that they don't have a free will is to tell them that we're just Homo sapiens. We're not magical beings. We're just evolved primates.
Exactly. And just one suggestion, like mention this Atlantic story, because like Atlantic really is a major magazine. For them to like refute free will, the more you mention that, then other journalists, for example, who read Coast will say, maybe like my website or my magazine, should be following up.
Well, yeah, that might get them curious to make them read the article.
Absolutely.
Hey,
You
sounds
know,
good.
I don't know if this is relevant or not, right? But I looked at an article, right, and they had like a list of the most dangerous animals and stuff, right? And it said that the most dangerous animal happened to be the mosquito because it carries like diseases and stuff. Now, it's amazing that they left out humans, isn't it? Because we're
Yeah,
the
I was gonna say
predator.
humans also.
Yeah, we're the apex
Uh,
predator, aren't we, George?
I agree completely. I mean, like, what other animal is like capable of like destroying the entire climate? I mean, like
Yeah.
extincting so many other species.
Yeah, I think humans really are the most damaging animal on the planet, but considering it was humans that were writing this, they didn't want to implicate humans as being dangerous because they were humans. They were biased, so they wanted to think it was mosquitoes.
All right, guys. So, like, I
Yeah,
think
it's
we've
somewhat
covered.
true, but
Yep, I think we've covered this enough. I think you guys are on board in terms of why we're doing this, how to go about it. And so, again, the next step is like I'll email Quaid, suggest a time, and once we get the schedule, it'll self-run, and we may want to kind of like revisit it every so often to kind of like talk strategy and all. But again, so once we get this going, don't be surprised if you start seeing free will pop up. Even like, for example, um, Kasich, John Kasich, before he ended his campaign. I sent you guys a video of this, I think, recently. Somebody in one of his events said, like, asked him a direct question, are people born gay? Okay, and Kasich began to like hem and haw and just like try to get out of it. And the guy, persisted. He said, simple question, yes or no?
Right.
And
It's yeah, go on.
yeah, so like basically within like 2 or 3 comments back and forth, cases admitted. Yeah, all right, fine. Their people are probably born gay. That's what you want. So then the question, we want them to ask: are people born, to be poor? I mean, things like that. Just don't be surprised if because of our work, you all of a sudden you notice these political tie-ins, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to like show these progressives that it's in their best interest to bring this issue of free will into politics, in a big way.
Yeah, because I would say when it comes to being born as something, like being born gay or whatever, right? I think it's a bit complicated. But what I would say is you're born with a genetic predisposition to become something.
Exactly. All right, so if we've done this enough, Chandler, if you want to end this, and like maybe we'll explore the morality that you wanted to, or another topic if you guys want, whatever you want.
Yeah, okay, I'll wrap this one up. You've been listening to Free Will, Science, and Religion, and we've been talking about how we're getting the message of no free will out there through using daily coasts and having a strategy to get people talking about it and its connection with politics. So, hope you've learned something very interesting and enjoyed. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.